Good morning. Good morning. Today it is Friday, and we're going to talk about some real estate. So, any questions you have, go ahead and post them in the chat. Let's see here. Post your questions. Getting all set up. A disclaimer. There we go. And now we can go ahead and get started. I guess the first thing that I want to say is PropStream is a pretty cool tool. It allows you to run some lists, find owner data. And when I first heard about PropStream, I was pretty skeptical. I was doing things the hard way, searching through the clerk of court's records, the auditor's websites. And really, it took me probably an hour to research a property thoroughly enough to where I felt comfortable with it. And now, I mean, with PropStream, I could do it in about 10, 15 minutes. And it's significantly more cohesive, and it's just I can research a lot more properties in far less time than I used to. So I'd highly recommend it if you are in the market for buying properties. It's also a fantastic tool to run comps. So I used to have to ask realtors to run comp reports for me, or use, again, a multitude of websites like Realtor, Redfin, and search the recently sold, and hopefully put something cohesive together. However, PropStream, I mean, you can set your own criteria of the distance between the subject property and the comparables, and also your square footage, bedroom count. You can really customize it and get it as targeted as you want to. And it also, once you figure out all the appropriate comparables, you're able to generate a really cool report. So here's my affiliate link for that. That's the link on the screen. I highly recommend it. I also run a mastermind group. It's called Seek Wisdom. So there's the banner for that, seek-wisdom.com/join. There's a video on the channel that I'd highly recommend you watch. It's just called Seek Wisdom Mastermind. If you type that into YouTube, it'll pop up. And there's like a 25-minute video that I recorded about everything that I want that mastermind to be. So it's really awesome. There's about 12 guys in it at the moment, and we're all hard charging, accomplishing goals, and growing those real estate portfolios. So I'd highly recommend it if you want to be around some like-minded men. Disclaimer, post your questions in chat. Let's see. Jazzy Peach, good morning. Happy to see you here. I do not remember this username, so welcome. I appreciate you being here. Any questions that you might have about real estate investing at large, happy to answer those. However, I regularly use CPAs, attorneys, and a whole bunch of other professional service people to formulate an opinion. I would highly recommend that you do the same, regardless of what I say or don't say. There's also a rental calculator app that we had created, and I found myself using two apps very regularly, one to just do the loan and the other to figure out, like, just do the full rental analysis, all the income minus all the expenses. So rather than shifting back and forth between two apps, I really thought to myself, hey, why don't we just create an app and have it do the best of both worlds? So also the loan calculator app that I was using, they had no way to like save those formulas. So by the time that I actually was analyzing a property to the time that we closed, I would run the same formula multiple times. So now I just save it by the street address and don't have to do that more than once. So that's really exciting. That's available in the Apple Store and also the Google Play Store. Now, that is the most I have pitched all of the ways to help me make money with the app, except for the app. That app is completely free. But PropStream, that's an affiliate link for me. I get paid for that. And the mastermind, yeah, get paid for that too. So any of those that interest you, feel free to use them. Ramblin' Ray, good morning. Good morning. This is fun. Got a solid bunch of people here. Some regular Friday morning chat participants. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a real good one. Let's see here. I had one comment. Hardly worth talking about. Let me see. Let me go through this YouTube, all the comments that have been posted. Let me see if any questions have been asked that would be good to answer. We're at 18,594 subscribers. That seems like a celebration worthy achievement. I'm a huge fan of that. Someone bought the Wealthy Gardener book. Nice. I highly recommend the book The Wealthy Gardener. If you haven't read it, I would highly suggest that you do so. One person asked, hi, where can I get a home equity line of credit for my investment property? Wells Fargo is not offering HELOCs currently. Thanks. I would say that pretty much always going with like local or regional or smaller banks is generally going to be better unless you do a significant amount of like wiring. You know, rely heavy on like app usage, or you really need like the really expensive bells and whistles for like international travel. Maybe I don't know. I don't fully understand the perks of going with these larger banks, but when it comes to investment properties, when it comes to giving you the best deals on property related assets, then the big banks are likely going to be the least favorable people to deal with. So I'm kind of happy to hear that Wells Fargo isn't currently providing any HELOCs. I would recommend strongly that you go and form a relationship with a regional or local credit union, a smaller bank branch. They are going to be significantly more agile. They are going to be able to focus specifically on your property. They're going to know the area. They're going to be significantly more comfortable with the collateral and potentially overtaking it if things go south. Consequently, they're going to give you better terms because it's in their wheelhouse. And you know, with Wells Fargo, with Chase, Bank of America, a lot of these banks, I mean, they're so vast that, you know, these are the ones that are utilized by the really large institutions, right? So they might be the same kind of service that these large institutional clients of these large banks get, you will likely get at one of these smaller regional banks because proportionately, you're going to be about the same, right? Um, that's what I would say. So I would not advocate using big banks for specific items. Now, I will say that larger banks give significantly better credit cards, especially if you're looking for like rewards points or whatnot. Local credit unions do not excel in that arena. There's a time and place for both of them. But if I was looking for a home equity line of credit, if I was looking for a loan on an investment property, if I was looking for an unsecured line of credit, if I was looking for anything related to my small business, the Chases, Wells Fargo, Bank of America are not even on the top 10 of places that I would look. So form a relationship. If you go into one of these small local credit unions and you can set up an appointment very quickly with like the vice president of commercial lending or mortgages or the vice president of anything, then that's when you're in the right spot. Find a bank where you can just pop in on one of the vice presidents, and then you'll be in good hands. Have you ever built a home from the ground up? Yes. If not, would you ever consider it? I would. I have. So I did in North Carolina. It was for our personal home. My wife and I bought about 17 acres, just shy of, and we built a house on it. It was a modular home. So it was pre-built, and then it came in two pieces. They put them together And then they spent another like 2 weeks connecting all of the things on the inside, painting, and just making it solid. I appreciated that entire process. It was pretty easy. We made a decent amount of money on that because after we built it, that's about the same time we decided to move to Ohio. So I think I lived in that house for less than 4 weeks. So even though it wasn't our intention to build a house and then immediately sell it, we built a house under an owner-occupied kind of construction loan, and then sold it pretty shortly. And that was with a local farm bureau credit union. So we come full circle. The local ones are the best. And even then, I knew nothing about real estate investing, but I did not approach one of the big ones. It was also, in the middle of nowhere on 16, 17 acres. So I think it was worthwhile. I mean, we made probably around $30,000 off building it and selling it. So we bought the land, built the house, sold the house and the land, and made about 30 grand. So that was a good boost to help us move to Ohio. I think it's really situational, right? So like when you have the ability to do that, I mean, I don't really think about new building much now at all, just because in the market that we're in Dayton, one of the main issue that we're plagued with is having thousands upon thousands of vacant homes that are still fine. Their bones are still good. They're structurally sound. They can easily be rehabbed. That the hardest part about getting them is clearing up the title issues that may be present on those. So I spend very little time thinking about building new because there's so much opportunity, and the right thing to do for the city currently is to remodel, rehab these older homes. So infill builds aren't really realistic. Right now, I don't think you'd be able to get your money back if you knocked a home down, built a new house in its place. I don't think it would be the same level of quality. The majority of Dayton's housing stock is old, when kind of craftsmanship was at its peak, as cliche as that might be. So the building materials, are significantly better. The lumber used in the homes are better. There's a lot of masonry in the right places where there isn't masonry today. So I would highly recommend rehabbing homes if you're in Montgomery County, Ohio, rather than building new at the moment. Now, for the suburbs surrounding the city of Dayton, I have no idea. I've heard of a couple people building new at this point, but I don't necessarily operate in the suburbs, only the city limits. And here, it doesn't quite make sense for our business model. So I did a TikTok video a while back because as I was learning about how to use TikTok and whatnot, I got a lot of pushback. And one of the things was, you're getting more deals than everybody else or something along those lines, or there's just not that opportunity out there anymore. So I went through a neighborhood in Dayton, and there are just rows and rows of vacant homes. Fixed up, all of these homes would be in excess of $100,000 of value. It will not take $100,000 to renovate any of these homes. So the opportunity is there. And actually, one of my good friends and one of our private lenders, he came up and visited Dayton, and I drove him around, and he was really shocked. He was just like, one of the things I just can't wrap my head around is like what you're doing isn't difficult. You're finding properties and making them new. There's clearly no shortage of the surplus of homes. How you're finding these homes isn't a secret. He's like, I just can't understand why more people aren't doing it. And that's one of the things that Will and I have discussed with each other several times. And we don't know the answer. We wish more people would do it. Dayton needs a lot more help than we could possibly give it. So anybody that's interested in moving to Dayton and improving this housing stock, you are more than welcome. I think one of the last numbers that I heard was 10,000 vacant homes is what the city has. So our aggressive goal of buying 200 homes this year even if we were able to do that, it would take us. So let's say we bought 200 homes per year, but if there's 10,000 homes out there, what is that, 50 years? 50 years worth of home buying and renovating that would be ahead of us? That's unrealistic. So there's more than enough opportunity here in this city for everybody to be able to profit off of. I got some vacant plots in Illinois a few weeks ago. I'm looking into the costs associated and if it's worth it to just hold and build or hold and sell. So mathematically speaking, it always makes more sense to hold on to properties if you have the ability to do so. If you have the appropriate operating capital, if you are appropriately bankable, if you can pull the majority of your money out, then it makes sense. Selling a property, cashing out, getting that good liquidity event, if you will, is great if you're not going to be taxed tremendously, if you are needing the capital. But by selling a property, you're no longer going to participate in the cash flow, the appreciation, the tax benefits, or the principal pay down, which are the four main ways of making money in real estate investing, right? So I think there is opportunity to supplement your buy and hold portfolio from selling a decent amount of properties. I think having those large liquidity events where you're able to, make $50,000 swings by buying a lot, building a house, and selling the house. If you use that 50 grand to then somehow add to your buy and hold portfolio, I think that's a good strategy. But I think people that flip properties need to be really careful and make sure that they're always focusing on the long-term goal and not just treating it like this is a job. This is how they make their money, right? Because one person could easily get addicted to those large liquidity events, and kind of overlook the fact that in order to make that same amount of money again, you have to do that exact same action. And whenever you stop doing those actions, then you run out of money. So you're really just like a really high paid time for money individual. Now it will produce one heck of a lifestyle for you, but from a long term, generational wealth, kind of legacy building, kind of passive income perspective, it's not going to do much for you. So if you are going to sell things, experience these liquidity events, then I would just make sure that you have some sort of plan in place to make some investment that is stable, that provides some type of passive income, whether that's like doing hard money loans yourself, owning rental properties yourself, investing with small businesses somehow yourself. I'm not necessarily a fan of the stock market or any of the other really methods of investing available to the public. So that's just the space that I know and I operate in. And I would just be careful not to accidentally give yourself some golden handcuffs to where you have to constantly be flipping in order to make the amount of money that you want to. Short term, very satisfying. Long term, doesn't do much for you without a corresponding plan on the back end. All right, let's see. Well, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about whether or not you need money to invest in real estate, because this is one of the most common questions I think there are from people that are looking to get started in real estate investing, and also one of the most common things that people that are already in real estate investing talk about. And Do you need money to invest in real estate? I've been asked that a significant amount of times from people wanting to get started but find themselves without any money. And I think while the answer to that is usually no in real estate investing, I would say that there has to be some sort of money or money equivalent. Now, when I say money equivalent, I'm talking about skills, knowledge, something that you can immediately put action towards and produce income, right? So while money isn't necessarily required to get started in real estate investing, there are two things that I really want to point out. The first is that you really need to diagnose the issue as to why you don't have any money, because there's generally a reason that you don't have any money that you need to address and fix immediately. Now, I understand that life happens, and sometimes life happens hard to people, which leaves them in positions where they have to utilize all of their funds and are left with very little. And that is a perfectly good starting point. And I'm empathetic to every type of situation that would put you there. However, there is also a significant number of reasons why you may not have any money, which all relate to discipline, lack of education, and overall just not being familiar with the way money works. So I'm always apprehensive to tell people that you can get started in real estate investing without any money, because while that's true, there are ways that you can get started. It's leaving this entire question unanswered of, well, what's the reason that you don't have any money? Because, especially here in America, in most regions, especially, I heard an advertisement this morning for, man, what was it? Regardless of what, it was Bob Evans. So Bob Evans is starting at $18 per hour and goes up to $32 per hour for some positions. Now, I don't know what this is, but $20 an hour is 40 grand per year. 40 grand per year is above, that puts you in the top 1% of income earners out there. And this is available at what Bob Evans called an entry level position at $18 per hour. So we have a significant amount of resources here in the States, and it is extraordinarily easy to earn more than you consume. And that alone is a discipline, as a skill set that once you do that for any length of time, you're really going to start collecting in excess of capital. And so long as you outpace yourself on your earnings as you do on your consumption, then eventually you're going to be in a really good spot, right? So, I often talk about how I started investing in real estate in 2017. I didn't do so without any money. So money helps significantly when you're getting started. But, I was 27 in 2017. But when I got my first job right at 21 in law enforcement, I lived off half of my paycheck from the day I was hired. So I saved 50% of my income until the time that I left. And, working extra just to do it and save those funds. When I left, I had about $100,000 that I was able to invest into real estate. So I don't want someone with $0 just getting started to think that where they currently are, when I say that, we bought our first duplex in 2017, is even remotely the same position. Now, you could be, and I'm sure there are several people out there that have started with less and have built more faster, right? And that's not my point. My point is, when you see a lot of these materials, when you about these real estate investors saying, get into these properties with no money down, low money down, or any sort of get started in real estate investing without any of your own money, any of those type programs or conversations, before you even embark on that, you really need to do a massive self-reflection and figure out what are the events that has led you to not having any money currently, and fix those. Because money is one of these things that If you have a bad foundation, regardless of how much money you put in there, you're going to continually lose it, right? So it's kind of like a bucket with holes in the bottom. Everybody has to have holes in their bucket because we are constantly trading our value, skills, services for money, and then we're constantly using our resources available to us to consume at some level just so that we can survive, whether it's shelter, food, any of that. So we all have to lose money, but at what rate is the most important question. And you got to plug up those buckets before you have any chance at achieving some like long-term success, because we're all familiar with the stories of people from the lottery who win big and then go bankrupt shortly thereafter, right? It's just a matter of time because they never had that painful self-aware internal self-reflection and actually fix the issues that have led them to not having any money. Now, once those are fixed, you can pump as much money into your little ecosystem as you would like, and you would continue to flourish. Kind of the cliche term of the rich get richer, because they have addressed those inward issues about their consumptions versus their, value adding or income producing things that they do. And the moment they lose that is when they start to in turn lose everything, right? So it is a fundamental conversation that has to happen if you are not looking to just get rich and then subsequently get broke quick. You are looking for a long-term plan, because a lot of people that are just getting started in real estate investing say things like, I don't have good credit, I don't have any money, but I am interested in building long-term generational wealth via real estate investing, and I'm looking to retire early from real estate. And none of those things are feasible based on your history of bad credit, not having any money, right? So those two underlying issues have to be addressed very thoroughly, very sternly, and very uncomfortably, likely. Now, once you address those things, then if you pick up the skill set and the knowledge base of this is how to raise private capital, this is how to analyze a deal, this is how to find deals. Now, those are actual skills that people like myself even would pay really good money for. So, if you know how to analyze a deal, if you know how to find deals, then you have the ability to be a wholesaler. And a wholesaler essentially goes out, they find deals, they analyze deals, they package them together, and then present those deals to investors like myself who pay sometimes handsomely for those two things to be done on my behalf. Now, of course, I do my own due diligence and double check, but it's not uncommon for us to pay wholesalers for, $5, $10, $15,000 per deal, just for finding them, analyzing them, and doing that. Now, if you're a wholesaler and you make $5, $10, $15,000, right? Now that goes back to what I said about flipping homes. If that is your source of income, if you go out and you consume that capital, if you, finance your lifestyle via that money that you just made, then you're going to give yourself golden handcuffs, right? Because that is a short-term, massive amount of, influx of cash, but you're going to have to do that same action again afterwards, again and again and again, to continually have that lifestyle. So you really need to, first off, have some sort of long-term passive income plan, and then also not have your personal consumption out of control, right? So once you then have that skill set that a wholesaler does of finding deals, analyzing deals, that's a great way to get started, because now, even though you have no money, you're getting paid like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Now, if you don't consume, if you don't live off that income from those, if you put that aside, and then 3, 4, 5 deals later, you've got the ability to take down your own rental property in cash of these deals that you're finding, or use that money if you're in a higher price market as a down payment for your first property. Now, if you then add the skill set of raising private capital, finding some friends or family members that believe in you, that want to see you succeed, that are happy to lend you money at a interest rate that you two mutually agree is beneficial, and you secure it by one of these deals that you find with a promissory note and mortgage, well, now you have made the equity. You are now going to get the appreciation. You are now going to get the tax benefits of owning real estate. And then once you switch that over to long-term debt with a bank, well, now you're going to have that principal pay down as well. So when people say you can make money in real estate, or you can get started and you can become a real estate investor without having any money, I think it should be plastered everywhere that this does not include your previous, discipline issues or whatever led you to not having any money currently. And this is also more suggestive that you can learn all the skill sets. You can create the knowledge base. You can create the network that will allow you to be successful in real estate investing without coming up with any of your own dollars. Because you can go to tons of real estate investors meetups for free. You can read as many books as you would like to from your local library about investing in real estate. You are, becoming a value add to the real estate industry with very little of your own money down. I think it's more appropriate to say, you can learn how to do this job. You can research without doing any money or without spending any money, right? I think that is most appropriate. I think that is a better reflection of what is actually happening when people say that. And I think the failure rate is so high amongst new real estate investors because those underlying issues of what caused you to not have any money or what caused you to have bad credit go unresolved. You have to fix those things. And then also, I think there's improper expectations of what real estate investing can do for you. Building generational wealth, absolutely. Having assets that you could pass down to your kids, 100%, you can do that. Retiring early because of real estate investing, no, says I. I don't think the people on the internet that are talking about how they're retiring early based on their rental portfolio is even moderately true, right? Like one person that has written several books said that when he got to 40 properties, he was able to leave his job. And I don't believe that. One of my good friends currently has 50 properties. He told me definitively he cannot live off the proceeds of those rental properties. I think while you get, if you just analyze, right, the four ways of making money, you've got the cash flow, the appreciation. Appreciation is something that's not tangible. You can tap into it later, right? When you have the property for a while and you do a cash out refinance, you can get some of that appreciation, but you can't use that appreciation to feed your family. The tax benefits might save you, a little bit of money that you give to the government, but you can't you can't actively feed your family with, or yourself even, with the tax benefits that you are receiving from those. And then the principal pay down, well, that is money that's accumulating for you, but it's not, like a savings account that you can just go tap into when you're ready. You're going to have to refinance to take advantage of both the appreciation and that principal pay down. So then you've got the cash flow, which is a very small portion. And, when you analyze a rental property on paper, sure, you put 5% for vacancy, 5% for repairs, maintenance, 10% for capital expenditures, whatever the most recent book on real estate investing that you read says. But what are you doing with that money when you're actually receiving the rental income from your residence? Do you have separate bank accounts? Do you have a capital expenditure account that you put 10% of that rent into on a monthly basis? Do you just let it accumulate there? Chances are, from most real estate investors that I talk to, the answer is no. Do you have a vacancy fund that you tap into when a property is sitting vacant? Most people don't. Do you have a repairs maintenance fund? Most people don't. And my overarching point that I'm going to make is even if you did have one of those funds, then the chances of a capital expenditure event happening early on in your real estate investing career and that fund be fully funded for that particular repair is very unlikely, right? So I had lunch with a lady yesterday, and her husband have 3 properties, and they said that they can consistently see like $1,000 per month, and that is fantastic. But my follow-up question was well, even if you have a roof go out that costs you 10 grand, well, now your income, your $1,000 income that you can consistently see, is gone for 10 months while you are replenishing your capital expenditure fund. So, she quickly said that she had reserves, but, to that point, it's right. Because if you have too many of those capital expenditure events, then your fund's going to be at zero, and you're still going to need to fix things when they go wrong with your property, because deferred maintenance is the enemy of a successful portfolio. So that's true with 3 properties, and I think the same would be true for 40. And I know the same is true for my friend with 50, right? It's a constant battle to have enough money to take care of a real estate portfolio. Now, sure, once you have this portfolio for any length of time, you're going to be in a better position because of all like the savings and accumulation of ways that the other 3 ways that you make money in real estate: the principal pay down, the principal pay down, the appreciation, and the tax benefits. Those are always going in the background. But as far as consuming the cash flow from your rentals, it's a very difficult thing to do while also warding off deferred maintenance on your portfolio. So the actual ability or dream or expectation of retiring early when you get started in real estate investing is largely a false one. My friend that has the 50 doors, he still works several W-2 jobs to support both his bankability and at times his portfolio, because a lot can go wrong at once. And if you're sitting there consuming the cash flow that is your net cash flow on paper when you analyze the property, then you're putting yourself in quite a pickle. And it's just a matter of time before either deferred maintenance starts becoming ever present on your portfolio, or you dwindle down your reserves in your capital expenditure fund. I got them at auction for under $1,000. It looks like the previous homes were torn down a while ago. My gut says to build. Thank you. Nice. $1,000 lots. Those are pretty solid. You used to be able to buy lots in the area for $500-$600 each, and can't do that quite anymore. So really looking forward to seeing what you build. In qualifying for traditional financing for a first rental property, does the potential rental income count towards your qualifying income? No. No, it does not. Now, I can't speak on this nearly as expertly. I can't speak on this with nearly as much expertise as a lender would, but oftentimes, especially traditional lending, are ones that are going through Fannie Freddie, so that they're resold to the government. They have very stringent requirements of how your income is calculated, what you have to do in order to qualify. So your first couple of rental properties, those are solely going to be based on your current income and your current debt obligations. If you are just getting into rentals, then they're going to want to see like 2 years worth of rental history before they start including that income, because these banks are going to consider you becoming a landlord or real estate investor as a new venture. So it would be no different than you leaving your job and starting a new business. Even if it's in the same industry, the bank wants to see that you can do it successfully and profitably for 2 years before they're comfortable lending to you and counting that income. So if you are already retired and you get multiple pensions and you start your new job, right, you can use that pension income, that retirement income, to qualify for loans, but not your new business venture. Now, once those 2 years pass and you have been in business, you've been profitable, and you can show that, then they're going to be able to include that new business venture, now seasoned business venture income and qualifying you for loans. So the first 2 years of owning rental properties is pretty rough. You are generally going to have to do some type of creative financing if you don't have like a high W-2 income earner type position, or you're going to have a strong W-2 and qualify personally for all of these traditional loans, right? Now, Fannie Freddie, always the longest term, lowest interest rate loan out there because they're backed by the government. So those are also going to be like the most stringent that you can qualify for. You can get 10 of those before you have to do something else. And that something else is generally going over to the commercial side of lending. So on commercial loans, you can have as many of those as you want to. But I think even on the commercial side, they're still going to want to think of you as a safe bet as 2 years of rental history to be able to count that income. Now, one of my favorite things to say is he who has the gold makes the rules, and all banks are different. So if a bank is going to keep a loan on their books, then all they have to do is consult with themselves as to whether or not that's a loan that they want to keep on their books. Now, the larger the banks, kind of like what I said when we first started the stream, is your really big banks probably aren't going to make many exceptions or be interested in considering anything that isn't that perfect cookie cutter type loan. However, the smaller regional local credit unions are probably able to spend a little bit more time analyzing, walking with you through a deal and seeing what all is needed and assessing their personal risk tolerance as to whether or not that's something that they want to do. And if it is something they want to do, if they do find you to be a good candidate, a good, safe bet, then they have every right to give you the money that you're requesting for in order to do this deal, the next one, or whatever else. So if you get turned down by one bank, do not give up, go to another bank, and then keep doing that. And it's also really important to know whether or not somebody is going to resell this to Fannie Freddie or if they're going to keep it in their personal portfolio, because that changes the conversation as well. Because if you talk to one bank and you know they're saying no because they can't resell it to Fannie Freddie, then you know that you now need to go find a bank that is willing to keep that loan in their portfolio. Because if you don't make that distinction, then you run into the risk of asking 5 banks that all plan on selling your loan to Fannie Freddie and getting declined by all of those. And that's just kind of silly once you know it doesn't fit that Fannie Freddie cookie cutter pattern. I'm happy with that answer. I think I did a good job. 13 people on, no questions asked. Let's see if I can think of another rant to go on. I think I did a really good job answering the question that I asked myself about, do you need any money to get started in real estate investing? My answer to myself is depends. Depends. Good morning, sir. I'm really happy to see you on here. As always, there's a significant amount of chatter of going into a recession, of the market shifting, the market changing, whatever. Now, I first want to point out that this conversation always exists, right? When I started investing and started looking into it back in 2016 and 2017, people were convinced that a market crash in the housing market was imminent because prices just continued to go up. And I think as people, we are really, really easily attracted to kind of fear-based things, right? And there's a part of us that The more fearful we are, the more conservative we feel like we're being, the better we are at planning. And we trick ourselves into thinking that we're going to be better off by thinking through all these fearful things and planning for it. And while that's true to an extent, you can also overcorrect. But there's a lot of people on YouTube that are really looking for a lot of views, and will make very convincing thumbnails that the entire world is about to fall in, right? And it's human nature. They get more views, which in turn triggers other people that make content to make those same videos because that one did well. And while I do think from an economical perspective, we're in a bit of a quandary, so to speak, I don't think that sitting on the sidelines, waiting and seeing, or being overly panicked is something that you should do. And after thinking long and hard about all of this, I mean, obviously it's good to always have reserves on hand. But for the housing market, I think we are in a different spot than we ever have been. I believe that, with inventory as low as it is, with labor shortages, with supply shortages, it's not like it's going to become cheaper to build homes. So I don't see the inventory doing anything but getting lower, right? So even if interest rates go up, even if a lot of people are no longer able to afford homes, you've got like a disproportionately low inventory on the homes that are available. So one of the things that I think is often overlooked is while things like the Great Depression are really bad, while things like, the 2008 crash of homes and all the people that lost homes, while that's not good, you also have a significant number of people that are building businesses and are thriving during those times, right? So I would look up businesses that started during the Great Depression and are still around today. I would start researching, what type of investors made a significant amount of money in 2008. And I would put any fears that you have to rest by planning in similar methods that these people started out in, right? So if you look at the people that were impacted by '08, by the people that lost their homes, I would listen to as many of those stories as you can. I would find plenty of people that, went bankrupt during those times or that did pretty well in those times. Interview them, figure out what you can do in the next recession to kind of put you at ease and make you comfortable and continuing to acquire properties and continue to work on your business. Because sitting on the sidelines, waiting, not a good option. There's a really good book that I have recently read several times by Howard Marks called The Most Important Thing. I would read that a couple of times. I think that's good. And that was written just shortly after 2008. So I think it's a really fun perspective. Thank you. All right. 48 minutes. That makes sense. I did not do one last week. I went down to the wonderful state of North Carolina, picked up my kids from their little Nana and Grandpa camp, and I've always noticed that the comments, the questions, the attendance is a little bit low after I miss a week. So I just want to let you know that I'm okay. I'm not offended by the lack of questions that are being asked. I also know that several people on this call are some weekly listeners that have already asked a plethora of questions. See if I can go through some other things. We'll see if I can read something that'll trigger a nice little rant. Will and I spoke on a panel this past week, a little real estate investor panel. I'm trying to also think through some of the questions that were asked and kind of reiterate or expound on some of those. Oh, I've got a good one. We talked about appraisals for a decent amount, and one of the misconceptions surrounding appraisals is that appraisals have the ability to um, that appraisals have the ability to take into consideration future projects. So the conversation came up as one gentleman felt that the appraisals in a certain area always came back lower. So appraisals are really subjective. Appraisers are, it's an art form backed with a little bit of fact, right? So appraisals are bound to comparable sales in the area. Now, the quality of the home, the condition of it, is completely subjective. So if you take all of the metrics about a house and you put them on paper, it would be no difference than taking all of the metrics of a person, putting them on paper, and comparing, three people by the similarities in metrics, right? It is subjective. It is not by any means a foolproof way to compare properties, and it is not always right. So again, you have three appraisers and you'll come up with three different appraised values. They're subjective, not a foolproof method. However, they are based largely and only solely on comparable sales of homes that loosely fit the same metrics as the subject home and property. So there are no factors. Like if there's a plan to build a new development in an area, then that will never be reflected on an appraisal unless you have people that are speculating and paying more than they should for homes in that area. However, appraisals are always a lagging indicator of the market. So even if, 5 properties are listed at 125,000, if none of them have yet sold and all of the previous sales on that same street or in that same area are around 50, then you're going to be really hard pressed to get any of those properties to sell or appraise for 125 until at least one of those closes. Now, there is just an unbelievable amount of money out there in the world. So someone at some point in that example is going to make up the difference between what the bank will lend them, 75 if it's a rental property, or 95% if it is a owner occupied property of 50,000. So somebody is going to really want that home and have to be able to borrow from friends, family, their 401k, or otherwise come up with the cash to split the difference, or just buy the entire thing in cash. And once that first property closes for 125,000, well, now the others might appraise at the difference between that one for 125,000 and the other two that are still at 50,000. So now you're going to meet in the middle, and the other two are going to appraise for 75, 80 or something like that, right in the middle. So now it's going to become easier to get a better appraisal because you have the ability to use that first one that sold at 125, and then you're going to have to split the difference less of that 75 to 95% of that new value that's in the middle of 125,000 and 75,000 or 50,000, which is likely, 75, 80, 85, somewhere in there. So now somebody's only going to have to come up with like 30 grand, not the 80 that was initially intended on splitting the difference. So it takes appraisals a long time to catch up to the actual movements of the market. So generally speaking, it is in everyone's best interest to not think that appraisers or appraisals have the ability to skew this data based on their own biases or any sort of like systemic issues that may or may not exist. I think that's a losing game because this is the institution that we have at hand. Changing it is not going to be easy, if ever possible. And at the end of the day, you have to point to the comparable sales. Now, if the condition is way off, then you're going to be able to. So, like, if your subject property is recently rehabbed, so you think it's worth 100,000, and all the other properties are in horrible shape, and they all appraised for like 40 grand, then but they're complete dumps. And the appraiser tries to say that your property is worth 40 grand. Well, you can very easily, I don't know the word at the moment. I just completely blanked. Dispute, contest. I don't think those are the words I was looking for, but those are the ones I'll use. You can argue. You can complain about that appraisal, dispute it, and try and get a different valuation. You can get a different appraiser out there. You can provide your own comps and say, this is the reason that I do not agree with this. And we have done that at times. Now, whether or not the bank will consider it is a completely different story. But if you're not satisfied with that, you can go to a bank. And eventually, just like you're going to be able to find a bank that is willing to work with you and help you become a better real estate investor by giving you more money, you're going to have to ask a lot of them, but you'll eventually find one. And same with the appraisals. So I have found that because appraisals are so subjective, it is easy to kind of misplace or put a bunch of subjective kind of chip on your shoulder information and direct it to the appraisals. But I would refrain from doing that. I've kind of found that the more chips you have on your shoulder, the more it kind of weighs you down and the less successful you'll ultimately be. At what point during the acquisition of a property should I consult with an attorney, and how often should I be interfacing with one? I would never consult an attorney to acquire a property. I would consult with a title company who actually put on the panel that I spoke at. So I would say that the only person that you need to consult as you're purchasing a property, especially if it's like off the market or even if it is, peer-to-peer, I would always run that purchase through a title company. What the title company is going to do is do a title search and make sure that from a legal perspective, everything lines up. And then they're going to give you title insurance if you so choose to purchase it, which means if anyone comes forward and takes claim to your new title, then they will resolve it for you up to the dollar amount that you paid for that property or whatever you negotiate or purchase on your title insurance. Now, a lot of title companies have in-house attorneys or attorneys that they regularly consult with to help resolve any really sticky legal issues or to consult when they don't know how to handle something. But a lot of liens based on properties are pretty easy to clear up. And if they're not, then the deal is likely going to fall through. Now, it's completely possible to close a purchase of a property outside of a title company amongst friends. If I said, hey, I'm going to give you 10 tomatoes for your property, we could do that if we both agree to that. And then in writing, we would get a quitclaim deed and record that. And then I would have officially purchased a property for 10 tomatoes. And the seller of that property would think that that was a fair exchange. And subsequently, that property would be mine, right? You could do that. But if I did that based on a quitclaim deed, not through a title company, then there's no guarantee that the previous legal work is all done correctly. And if I don't have a clear title, then I won't be able to sell it to someone unless it's a really low price. And I won't be able to refinance. Banks do not like lending on properties that there's not a clear title to, because they will not be able to get their funds in the event of a default, because they might not be the actual first position mortgage. They might have some older claims to that property that they have to fight through first. And it's just too much of a headache. So there is an entire group of people out there that might be in trouble themselves, that might not be bankable themselves, that might not ever be able to get loans themselves because of, federal liens, federal judgments. I don't really even know. I don't know that world well, but they would have no apprehension at all in purchasing properties that don't have clear legal work to them, because they don't have clear legal work themselves, right? Which, properties can get kind of caught up in, and then it would take a lot of work to get through those things if you ever want to bring it back to the more traditional way of buying and selling properties that's approved by title companies and banks, but not impossible. So all that to say, if it's purely about the acquisition, then I would not consult an attorney directly. I would consult a title company, and the title company can consult their attorney as they see fit. But I largely think that a lot of people a lot of people on this channel kind of come in from the video that I've done on foreclosures. And one of the most common questions that I see on those foreclosure videos is, well, what about the title work? Well, the title work is something that you do not need to stress about. You should always use a title company for that. And you don't need to do any education for yourself, in my opinion, on how title work is done. You should just rely on the professionals, the title companies themselves, because at the end of the day, the title company is the only one that's going to be able to write the insurance or the title insurance on that property, which is exactly what you want. I would not spend any money on a property without title insurance, because I do not want anyone to, in the future, lay claim to any of our properties. 10 tomatoes. Yeah. New life goal, I guess, buy a property for 10 tomatoes. All right. 10 people on, 1 tomato for each. Let's see here. Any questions you might have in the chat? Happy to answer them. Speaking of issues, we are in the process of one refinance at the moment. This is a package of 11 properties that 11 properties that we purchased. They were seller financed, which is cool. And she is a widow, but her and her husband purchased these properties one at a time, spanning many decades. And I've never seen this, but because we did the seller financing, we closed through a title company, but the deed didn't transfer. It was more of a land contract. Now, at the refinance, the deeds will transfer. And when we attempted to do this with the county, what the county told us is all of the legal descriptions are expired. So we have to hire a surveyor and do new legal descriptions for all of those parcels. That is something that I have never heard of, and I did not know that that was a real thing. So it is really costly. The first quotes that we got were for like 10 grand to update these legal descriptions, to go out there and appropriately survey them. We were able to get it down to 5 grand, but I mean, that's fascinating. I'm sure it all ties into some old framework that was established many, many years ago. But I just think it's bizarre that the seller or the owner of the property is responsible for its own legal description. Part of me says, hey, government, you should describe this however you see fit. But I don't know. I don't know what all goes into a legal description. So that might have been an extraordinarily ignorant statement. But it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy to me, especially, it's not like this is all of these are city platted lots. So if they're city plats, I feel like it should be a pretty good record where the property lines are and what that legal description should be. But I don't know. All right. Well, I'll go over my sheet once more. Been an hour and 5 minutes in. We've got a couple of good clips that we can do from this video. So here's a topic. Is hustle sustainable? Really referencing wholesaling real estate. Is hustle sustainable? I think this kind of goes further than just wholesaling real estate. I think this can be said for any type of like one-time commission or one-time payment for a service, right? So I think there's you know different ways to earn money, but really only one way that money works kind of long term. And I think, naturally we all age, right? And we all kind of look forward to tomorrow in a manner of, hey, hopefully all of my work today in some way carries forward and I won't necessarily have to work as hard tomorrow unless I want to, right? However, kind of like we talked about earlier, it's really easy for people to get kind of caught up in these vicious cycles of, hey, I sold a house, got a lump sum of $50,000. That's a big dopamine hit. That's a really big reward. That's more than one people make. That's more than most people make in a year inside of one transaction. And then you do that again and again. And then you start creating for yourself this lifestyle. If you're not taking the appropriate actions on the back end with your funds, that's really hard to fuel, right? So I would say by and large, pretty much across the board, except for a few people out there, that hustle by and large is not sustainable. A while back, when I first left law enforcement, really, historically stable profession, one that's really difficult to get fired from, all government jobs, not just law enforcement, I switched over to commission only sales on life insurance. And while I was making significantly more money, sometimes, upwards of like $20,000 per month. Now I found myself in this predicament where I was really stressed at night because I never knew where my next dollar was going to come from, right? So I had a really difficult time sleeping because every time I made money, I couldn't make money off that one person again because they already had their policy in place. So unless they were buying a policy for a friend, a family member, something, then that was it. Wholesaling is kind of the same. Regardless of where you are, there's only so many different properties that you can sell. Now, if you are trying to wholesale nationally, then sure, there's a bigger pool, but you can only make money off that one property once unless something bizarre and unusual happens, right? So I would recommend for anyone that has the ability to make a large W-2 salary, a large one-time kind of commission or payment off a transaction, to really be mindful of the proceeds of those transactions and of that work, and make sure that you are investing or working actively on some sort of plan to slowly make you more money, right? So what I learned when I realized I couldn't sleep is that I made a vow to myself to never do anything that only pays me once, right? So the insurance agency that I now have, it's property and casualty. It gets paid. Get paid out significantly less than the life insurance. However, we get the same amount of money year over year, so long as our clients stay with us, right? On rental properties, it's not flipping. We're not making $50,000 swings in one purchase. We are making a couple $100 per month on the cash flow side of things. Now, sure, we've got the appreciation, the principal pay down, the tax benefits going in the background, but it's a much slower road to amass a $10,000 per month salary or whatever number you have in your head that you want or need to kind of retire or be financially free or whatever it is that your goals are. It's a slower road to do it in things that pay you residually and regularly, right? But that's everyone's end goal, even the people that are out here making these large transactions. But because it's such a dopamine hit, because you're rewarded so greatly from a financial perspective, it's really easy to get addicted to that, to kind of give yourself these golden handcuffs where you're going to have to do that. It's kind of like the most serious case of trading your time for money. And at some point, you're always going to run out of time before you make that money that you want to. So I would say that the only way hustle is sustainable is if you are constantly building on, working on, and improving your long-term game plan, because these short swings of large lump sums are only really positive while you have the energy the bandwidth and the brain power to do them, right? But it's one of those things where a lot of people kind of put this kind of passive income idea on a pedestal, but it generally comes in significantly lower dollar values, right? So for the people that have the ability to earn these, high income W-2 or, other things, they might not necessarily be drawn to this kind of passive income idea as much because they're making these large lump sums. So do your best not to get distracted. Focus on these smaller things that take a really long time to build, but in the end, you'll be better for them because the time commitment down here for this passive income side of things is really low. You still have to do some things, but it's not like how hard you have to work to do this one $50,000 commission, flip or whatever else. Like you hear about people not spending enough time with your family or their family or being happy or like ruining relationships over here when they're gunning really hard. They're making these large lump sums. And then they're looking at the people that are making less, but have that residual income over here. And these families really tend not to fall apart. The time commitment here is so much lower. Sure, the reward financially is lower, but that time with this passive income, with the things that pay you more than once, you're really debunking and kind of decoupling yourself from that time for money paradox. So you're able to enjoy more of your time doing what you truly want to, rather than making sure that you can live to die another day in this golden handcuff role. Hey, hope that rant helps. Man, still no comments. Well, hey, I'm happy with that rant and the other rants that I have gone on today. So, hey, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, check out the Seek Wisdom Mastermind. That's seek-wisdom.com/join. It's a mastermind group. There's about 14 guys in there at the moment, 12 to 14. And we meet once per week for about an hour a week. There's an entire video that I did on it, fully explaining what it is, what the expectations are, and what you should expect from it. So if that's of any interest to you, check that out. Also, check out PropStream. My affiliate link is in the comments below. And if you want to find some more deals, research deals faster, run your own comps, then PropStream is a fantastic solution for that. So that link will get you a 7-day free trial. And then I believe it's about $99 per month afterwards. But those are two resources that I truly think will help you succeed faster than doing it on your own the hard way. That takes significantly longer. All right. Well, hey, I sure do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. And I will see you all next week at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on this YouTube channel.